I've told this story not because I want to scare you, but because I want you to pause, to ask, when your instincts speak, do you listen? When your body feels uneasy in a situation, do you brush it off? When something feels wrong, do you choose comfort over truth? That camping trip taught me more than fear. It taught me presence. It reminded me that ignoring discomfort won't keep you safe, that sometimes your silence is the only warning you'll get. And in life, as in the forest, some paths are not meant to be followed. So, be mindful of the places you go, of the people you trust, of the signs around you. The forest isn't cruel, it's just honest. And next time you hear something in the dark, don't be so quick to call it your imagination. There's something about the silence of the woods that speaks louder than any scream. I've always believed that if you sit quietly long enough, the forest will tell you everything you need to know, whether you're welcome or not. A few months ago, I went on a weekend camping trip with a group of friends, people I didn't know that well. You could say I was the outsider, invited out of convenience, not connection. But I've learned that sometimes outsiders see what those inside refuse to. It started with a hike, not a short one, miles deep into the woods, far beyond any trail markers, cell towers, or comfort zones. The kind of hike where your legs ache, your shoulders scream under the weight of your pack, but you keep going because someone says, it'll be worth it when we get there. And they were right. Eventually the forest opened up, like curtains drawing back on a hidden stage. And there it was, a crystal clear lake, cradled in a quiet valley, untouched and still. No docks, no cabins, no signs of people, just water like glass, reflecting pines that stood tall like sentinels. During the day, the sun danced on the surface, and dragonflies skimmed across it like they had all the time in the world. Birds called in the distance. A breeze drifted through the trees. It felt like we'd stumbled into some secret place the world forgot to ruin. We pitched our tents on a soft patch of grass near the shore, skipped rocks, fished, ate around the fire like we didn't have a care in the world. And maybe that's where we went wrong, thinking just because something looks peaceful, it is. That night, something shifted. Lying in my tent, staring up at nylon and shadow, I heard it. A sound that didn't belong. Not an animal, not wind. Something heavier, pacing, just outside. I unzipped my tent, but there was nothing. Just trees and silence. I mentioned it to the others in the morning. They laughed it off. Blamed squirrels or raccoons or my imagination. I didn't push it. I was the outsider, remember? The guy who didn't know them all that well. Just invited along for numbers or novelty. And besides, it was beautiful there. Too beautiful to be dangerous, right? The second day was just as perfect. The lake was clear enough to see. Fish swimming under your feet. The trees swayed in unison like they were breathing. We caught trout, took pictures, laughed over cheap beer and shared stories as the sun dipped below the horizon. But as dusk fell, the feeling returned, that quiet unease, like the forest was holding its breath. And that second night, the noises came back. Snapping branches, something or someone circling us. The sound of breathing that wasn't ours, not loud, not aggressive, just present. Again, I brought it up. Again, they shrugged it off, said I was spooking myself. But here's the thing. Animals run from you in the woods. Whatever this was, it was getting closer. The next morning, a park ranger showed up. No radio, no gear, just walked out of the trees like he belonged there. Said he was checking on things. There had been bear sightings nearby, but his uniform was faded, dirty. His eyes never met mine for long, and he never asked us who we were, never took our names, never asked for permits. He told us to keep the fire low at night, as there had been forest fires caused by previous campers being careless. Just smiled, that tight, hollow smile, and told us to be careful and walk back into the woods. Everyone else thought it was cool, a real ranger deep in the woods, but I couldn't shake it. Why would a ranger hike this far to say so little? Why didn't anything about him feel real? After the park ranger left, I mentioned to the group that he seemed odd, just felt off. The group, I could tell by their eyes they sensed it too, but quickly brushed it off as being ridiculous and told me I was imagining things. But I couldn't. The hairs on the back of my neck were up. Every fiber of my instincts were saying to get out of there. Since it was only early afternoon, I suggested we cut the trip short and pack up and hike out. The group rejected the idea pretty quickly. They only got so much time off a year and wanted to spend it together doing something fun like they were. I was told, though, I could go if I wanted to. The idea of hiking the woods alone did not seem appealing. I swallowed my growing sensation of danger and tried to act normal. That night, no one made jokes. The fire was smaller as the park ranger instructed. The laughs were quieter. One by one, the group moved away from the fire and into their tents for the night. Not long after the tents were zipped up, the sounds started. They didn't circle anymore, they stayed close. I didn't sleep much, how could I? I tried to convince myself I was wrong, that it was all in my head. But then morning came, and one of us was gone. Her tent was shredded, not cut. Torn like something had pulled her out from the inside. There were drag marks in the dirt, deep and frantic, leading straight into the forest. We ran after them for a while, shouting her name, crashing through brush and branches. But after a few hundred yards, the tracks just stopped. No blood, no sounds, no answers. We spent most of the day searching, splitting off in pairs, shouting her name over and over, checking the shore, the trees, the rocks along the lake's edge, anywhere someone might hide. But there was nothing. Not a footprint, not a sound, no sign she'd ever been there at all. And that's when we started noticing something strange. The silence. Not the kind that makes things peaceful, the kind that makes your skin itch. There were no birds, no buzzing insects, no frogs near the water, just the dry rustle of leaves when the wind stirred the trees like they were whispering to each other. It was like the woods were holding their breath, and so were we. That lake, so perfect, so alive the day before, felt different now. It wasn't just still, it felt watched. And slowly, without needing to say much, we all started looking at each other the same way. We have to go, now. Sure, people said it was to get help, to find someone with a radio, a phone, a rescue team, but that wasn't the reason. Not really. We all knew, we weren't coming back. We wouldn't dare. The silence had changed us. I saw it in their eyes. No more jokes, no more disbelief, just that tight, quiet panic. The kind that builds in your chest when your instincts start screaming and there's nowhere to run. We tore down the tents in near silence, barely speaking. Every twig snapping beneath our boots felt like a threat. Every shadow under a tree looked like it might start moving. I think we were all afraid to say the truth out loud. Afraid that if we named it, whatever it was, it would become real, or worse, it would hear us. As the sun dipped and the light turned gold, then gray, then gone, we moved fast. Packs half-zipped, supplies left behind. The trail out felt longer, darker, different, like the forest had shifted around us. None of us said it, but we all felt the same thing. If we didn't leave now, if we waited one more night, we wouldn't be leaving at all. We left that lake like it was cursed, moving fast, packs bouncing on our backs, sticks snapping under our feet. The sun was gone. The trail ahead lit only by 2 headlamps, narrow beams cutting through a sea of black trees. And I swear to you, the woods changed. The trail we had come in on, it didn't feel the same going back. It felt tighter, like the trees were pressing in on us, like they wanted to close the path behind us. We kept walking, fast. Branches clawed at our arms and faces, thin cuts on our skin we didn't stop to feel, just wiped the blood on our sleeves and kept moving. Hours passed. It was hard to tell how many. No one spoke unless it was to say, wait up, or left turn here. But it was wearing on us. The fear, the speed, the exhaustion. It was too much. Eventually, we came to a spot where the trees opened up just a little, just enough for a small break. We stopped, collapsed really. Some of us sat on rocks, others on fallen logs, backs aching, knees sore, breathing sharp and shallow like we'd been running even though we hadn't. Our headlamps were the only light in the world, 2 cones of pale white flickering in the night. No one dared turn them off. Someone passed around water. I remember how loud the swallowing sounded in the silence. Every noise we made felt like it didn't belong. Then one of the guys, Tyler, stood up and said he had to relieve himself. We told him don't go far. He chuckled, trying to keep things light, said I'm just going behind this tree. He stepped around it, just a few feet out of sight. And that was the last time we ever saw him. No scream, no struggle, no warning, just gone. At first we thought he was joking, trying to scare us. We called out, quiet at first, then louder, then yelling. I ran to the tree he stepped behind. There was nothing there, just forest, shadows, cold air. We fanned out a little, headlamps scanning the trees, calling his name over and over, but he didn't answer. He didn't make a sound. It was like he evaporated. And the worst part? No one said it out loud, but we all knew. Whatever took him had waited for us to stop, waited for someone to step away. Cut to black with the faint sound of wind through trees. We were being watched, not just followed, not just hunted, watched. And the forest, it was patient. After Tyler disappeared, no one argued, no one tried to look for him again. We just looked at each other, eye contact, a nod, and we got up, started walking, fast. Even the couple, Haley and Marcus, they stopped whispering once we hit the trail again. But before that, I heard her voice break as she said, "How could Tyler just disappear like that?" Marcus put a hand on her back, as if that gesture could hold together what her mind was unraveling. No one answered, because there was no answer. The trail, if you could even call it that anymore, was worse, thinner, twisting, like the forest itself had grown over it in the last few hours. We had to duck under branches, step over roots that hadn't been there before, climb through brush that grabbed at our ankles and sleeves. The path wasn't the same. But it had to be in our heads, right? We were hiking at night. Everything looks different in the dark. That's what we told ourselves. That's what we had to believe. But the woods, they were dead silent. No owls, no insects, not even the distant creak of trees shifting in the wind, just leaves beneath our boots and that low, slow breeze that didn't feel cold but felt wrong. And every step we took was loud, too loud, like the forest was amplifying us, broadcasting our movement to something out there, something that was listening, following, waiting. Hours passed, or at least it felt like hours. I could feel it in my legs, my back, my eyes stinging from lack of sleep. Finally, I slowed down. I didn't have a headlamp, so I asked one of the others, Jacob, to shine his light on my watch. He stepped closer. The beam hit the scratched face of my watch. 12:11 a.m. I blinked, looked again. 12:11 a.m. That couldn't be right. We had left the lake just after sunset. We'd been walking for what felt like an entire day, at least 5 or 6 hours since Tyler vanished. I knew that. I looked up at Jacob. And that's when I saw his expression change from confusion to fear. He whispered. When we stopped back there, before Tyler disappeared, he hesitated. It was 12:11 then too. We stood there in silence. Cold winds stirred the branches above us. Leaves spun in little circles around our feet. But the world, time itself, felt frozen. We had been walking for hours, but time hadn't moved. Not 1 second. And that's when the fear shifted, from panic to realization. We weren't just lost in the woods were lost around us. We kept moving. None of us said anything after we saw the time hadn't changed. What could we say? There was no plan anymore, just motion, just move. Like if we stopped again, something would take the next one. We climbed over more fallen trees, stepped through ankle-deep mud, pushed through thickets so tight they scraped our legs raw. Branches slapped us, our clothes tore. Our boots felt like they were filled with lead. Every breath was sharp. And even then, we kept going. Until suddenly Jacob, who was leading, stopped cold. His headlamp panned slowly side to side. I stepped up next to him, and that's when I saw it. The lake. The same one. Still, perfect, untouched. The moon reflected on its glass surface like a frozen photograph. Not a single ripple, not a sound. We had walked all night, all that pain, all that fear, and we were right back where we started. No one screamed. No one asked how. We were too far gone for that. Too tired to be angry, too scared to process it. We just stood there, staring at the water, our minds broken in silence. It felt like we'd been walking for 24 hours straight. Our bodies said that, our minds knew it. But time hadn't moved. Eventually, Marcus broke the silence. We should stay together tonight. Not one person argued. We gathered what was left of our gear and picked a flat patch just up from the lake's edge. We didn't spread out like before. This time we set up the tents in a circle, openings all facing inward, toward each other. We left just one narrow gap between them, blocked it with our packs, no way in or out without moving them. And we all agreed leave the flaps open, so we could see each other. Not just hear, not just sense, see. There was comfort in that. It didn't make us safe, but it made us feel less alone. No one offered to stay on watch. We were beyond that now. We just sat there in our tents, the moonlight cutting soft silver lines across the ground between us. Watching, not sleeping. Each of us trying not to be the first to close our eyes. The water didn't move, the wind didn't blow, and the forest didn't make a sound. Just the slow rise and fall of our breaths. Like we were all waiting for something we couldn't name to finally come for us. I woke up to light, real light. Not moonlight or headlamps, sunlight. Golden streaks came through the open flap of my tent, cutting through the dew in gentle beams. I sat up, heart pounding, and checked my watch. 6:45 a.m. Time was moving again. I leaned forward and peeked out the flap, eyes darting from tent to tent. Everyone was there. Still. Alive. No one missing. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I'd been holding. One by one, the others began to stir, blinking, stretching, rubbing their eyes. The same thing was on every face. Relief. It was daytime. Time worked. Maybe we could finally get out. We ate fast, energy bars and the last sips of water. No one had much of an appetite, and as we chewed, there was only one conversation. We leave, now, during daylight. We don't stop. We broke down the tents without saying much else. Shoulders ached, legs burned, but we didn't care. We were walking out of this cursed forest, and for a while, it felt like it might happen. The trail looked normal, recognizable. Sunlight streamed through the treetops, birds chirped, insects buzzed. We could hear life again. I remember thinking, maybe it's over, maybe it let us go. Then we reached a fork in the trail. Two paths, left and right, both familiar, but we hadn't remembered a split on the way in. That's when we saw him, the ranger, walking toward us down the right path. Same pressed uniform, same calm eyes, same old hat shading his expression. We all shouted at once, relief and desperation flooding out. We told him everything, the sounds in the woods, the disappearing friends, the time freeze, the looping trail. And once again, he wasn't surprised, not even slightly. He waited for us to finish, then said like he'd done this 1,000 times, "The left path will take you back to the entrance. Your vehicles should still be there." I stopped him. "What's your name?" He paused like he hadn't been asked that in a while, then replied, "Charles." Charles said he'd go back into the woods, try to find the ones we lost, but before he left, he said something I'll never forget. The forest has to have its fill before it lives again. That line, it hit something deep. We turned to look at him, to ask what he meant, but he was already walking to the back of the group. Except, he wasn't. He was just gone, vanished like smoke on the wind. No footsteps, no sound, just gone. We only looked at each other for 5 seconds, and without saying a word, we all took the left path. Soon the trees began to thin, and then we saw it. The valley below, and just beyond, our cars. We didn't cheer, we didn't celebrate, we just ran, got in, started engines, pulled away without looking back. But we weren't done. We needed to tell someone. We needed help. We drove straight to the ranger station. It was barely standing, old, faded. The sign hung crooked on rusted bolts. Inside was a single man, gray-haired, wrinkled, sitting behind a counter with a chipped coffee mug. He looked up as we burst through the door. We told him everything, and just like Charles, he didn't seem surprised, until one part. When we said the name, Charles, he froze, lowered his mug, eyes fixed on us. "What did he look like?" he asked. We gave the description. His face went pale, and then, softly, like he was talking to a ghost, So it's you, Charles, after all this time, still trying to help these poor lost people. He looked back up at us and told us. Charles was the head ranger here when I was a trainee. He went missing in 1989. He was never seen again. We didn't say much after that. We just looked at the station walls, covered top to bottom in missing persons reports, some old, some new, some yellowed and curling at the edges, all names of people who had walked into that forest and never come back. The man behind the counter finally said, with a hollow voice, "Some places were never meant for people, and some woods, they remember everything." After all the horror, all the loss, and the impossible loops through time, we made it out. But the forest wasn't done with us, and neither was Charles. The ranger we met had vanished in 1989, yet he was there, guiding us, knowing exactly what would happen. This is the ending of our story, but it may not be the forests. If this series kept you up at night, like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, would you ever go into those woods again? And remember, some forests don't want you to leave. They just let you go until they're hungry again.